The question is on the passage of the bill. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman?
What purpose does the gentleman from Massachusetts rise?
On that, I request a recorded vote.
A recorded vote is requested. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 5-minute vote.
Votes now on a final passage of this legislation dealing with the gas and oil drilling in the Outer Continental Shelf and setting national goals for oil and gas production. Coming up, votes on an adjournment resolution for members to be back in their districts next week, and a 5-minute vote on the rule for debating intelligence programs and policy for fiscal year 2011 following votes. Votes on final passage of that legislation will be taken tomorrow. Yesterday, former House Speaker Newt Gingrich announced that he is running for president, and from the Associated Press, campaign aides are saying Texas Republican Ron Paul will run for president for a third time. Aides are saying he'll announce those plans tomorrow, while in New Hampshire, he formed a campaign exploratory committee last month. Aides would only speak on background because the announcement is not yet official.
On this vote, the yeas are 243, the nays are 179. The bill is passed. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. The unfinished business is the vote on adoption of House Concurrent Resolution 50, on which the yeas and nays were ordered. The clerk will report the title of the concurrent resolution.
House Concurrent Resolution 50, concurrent resolution providing for an adjournment of the House.
The question is on the adoption of the concurrent resolution. Members will record their vote by electronic device. This will be a 5-minute vote.
5-minute voting continues on an adjournment resolution now for members to be back in their districts next week for the week. Up next, votes on the rule for debating intelligence programs and policy for fiscal year 2011. And votes on final passage of that legislation will be taken tomorrow. Right now on C-SPAN 3, former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney is speaking. He's talking to an audience on health care at the University of Michigan. Governor Romney, of course, considered a possible Republican candidate for president in 2012. Again, you can see his remarks live right now on our companion network, C-SPAN 3.
On this vote, the yeas are 227 and the nays are 158. The concurrent resolution is adopted. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. The unfinished business is the vote on adoption of House Resolution 264, on which the yeas and nays were ordered. The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Calendar Number 36, House Resolution 264, resolution providing for consideration of the bill H.R. 754 to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2011 for intelligence and intelligence-related activities of the United States government, the Community Management Account, and the Central Intelligence Agency Retirement and Disability System, and for other purposes.
The question is on adoption of the resolution. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 5-minute vote.
5-minute vote on the rule for debating intelligence programs and policy for fiscal year 2011. An article in the Hill newspaper today: the White House opposes cuts in the Intel bill but stops short of a veto threat. The White House yesterday did not issue a veto threat but warned the House not to cut intelligence funding. The White House stopped short of a veto threat but warned that the House should not cut intelligence funding, which would specify intelligence spending levels for the rest of fiscal year 2011 and reduce the budgetary authority of intelligence agencies by $47 million. And most of that cut would come in the current fiscal year, although it would have the effect of reducing spending over the next few fiscal years. In a statement of administration policy, the White House warned that cutting funding and personnel from various intelligence agencies would put critical intelligence gathering and analysis at risk, and called on members to maintain current funding levels.
Does any member wish to change a vote? On this vote, the yeas are 251, the nays are 133. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does gentlewoman from Florida rise?
Mr. Speaker, by direction of the Committee on Foreign Affairs, I submit a privilege report to accompany House Res. 209 for filing under the rule.
The clerk will report the title.
Report to accompany House Resolution 209, resolution directing the Secretary of the State to transmit to the House of Representatives copies of any document, record, memo, correspondence, or other communication of the Department of State or any other portion of such communication that refers to or relates to any consultation with Congress regarding Operation Odyssey Dawn or military actions in or against Libya.
Referred to the House calendar and ordered printed.
Mr. Speaker.
For what purpose does gentlewoman from Florida rise?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that it may be in order at any time on Tuesday, May 24, 2011, for the Speaker to declare a recess subject to the call of the Chair for the purpose of receiving in joint meeting His Excellency Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, sir.
The Chair lays before the House a communication.
The Honorable the Speaker, House of Representatives, sir. Pursuant to the permission granted in Clause 2H of Rule 2 of the Rules of the U.S. House of Representatives, the clerk received the following message from the Secretary of the Senate on May 12, 2011 at 11:30 a.m. Appointments, Board of Visitors of the United States Air Force Academy. With best wishes, I am, signed sincerely, Karen L. Haas.
For what purpose does gentleman from Michigan rise?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on Bill H.R. 754.
Without objection, so ordered. Pursuant to House Resolution 264 and Rule 18, the Chair declares the House in the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for consideration of H.R. 754. The Chair appoints the gentleman from Kansas, Mr. Yoder, to preside of the committee as a whole.
The House is in the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for consideration of H.R. 754, which the clerk will report by title.
A bill to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2011 for intelligence and intelligence-related activities of the United States government, the Community Management Account, and the Central Intelligence Agency Retirement and Disability System, and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the bill is considered read the first time. The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Rogers, and the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Ruppersberger, each will control 30 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Michigan.
Mr. Chairman, I yield myself such time as I might consume, and all time yielded is for the purposes of debate only.
The gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I wish to announce that subsequent to reporting the bill, the committee has modified the classified annex to the bill with respect to the authorized level of funding for certain programs, with bipartisan agreement between myself and the ranking member, Mr. Ruppersberger. The classified annex containing the modified schedule of authorizations is available for review by all members of the House, subject to the rules of the House and the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, under which procedures describe my announcement to the House on May 3, 2011. The modified schedule of authorizations is and has been available for review by members and the period of time required by the rules of the House. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, the annual intelligence authorization bill, I do believe, is one of the most important bills that will pass in the House each year. I want to thank my ranking member, Mr. Ruppersberger. We sat down at the beginning of January and decided that matters of national security were too important for infectious partisan debate and rhetoric. And we decided that we would work out through every cause as congenially as possible and agree where we could on every matter that we had a difference moving forward on, again, matters of intelligence and matters of national security. I think the product we see on the floor today reflects that commitment and that working relationship, and I want to commend Mr. Ruppersberger and the entire committee on the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence for their work, their cooperation, and their commitment to our national security to the United States. We recently saw the successful mission against Osama bin Laden. Our intelligence professionals remain on the front lines in Americans' defense against our enemies. For the last 6 years, Congress has failed to pass a bona fide intelligence authorization bill with funding authorities. Instead, yearly appropriations bills have simply deemed intelligence funding to be authorized. We must, and I think we agree in a bipartisan way, stop that trend and stop it this year. The continued success of our intelligence community requires effective and aggressive congressional oversight. Such oversight can only be achieved if we get back in the habit of meeting our responsibility of passing an intelligence authorization bill every year. Mr. Chairman, we have men and women scattered all across this globe who are engaged daily in sometimes often very dangerous work of collecting information to provide our policymakers and our warfighters the information they need to defeat our enemy. From trying to catch spies here in the United States by our FBI, to recruiting people who want to cooperate and help the United States on tough issues like nuclear proliferation or terrorism efforts targeted against us or our allies, these folks log countless hours, risk their lives, spend times away from their family, and deserve our praise and our commitment that we'll work with them to give them the tools that they need to be successful. I can't think of a more important time in our history where I've seen intelligence play such an important role in our world affairs. The world is changing before our eyes, and our intelligence community is providing us the information we need not just to be safe, but to make good decisions on what that world looks like and what our national interests are, country by country, region by region. I'm particularly pleased that this bill has such strong bipartisan support. The legislative provisions are intentionally limited to focus our attention on providing necessary resources to the men and women of the intelligence community as provided in the classified annex. The secrecy that is a necessary part of our country's intelligence work requires that the Congressional Intelligence Committees conduct strong and effective oversight on behalf of the American people, and that strong and effective oversight is possible. But without that annual intelligence authorization bill, the bill that we will pass today, Congress must get back in the habit of passing that bill every year. We make important commitments in this bill, Mr. Chairman, for the priorities of the intelligence community. Technology has fused in the intelligence collection like I've never seen it, and its increase is exponential over the last 10 years. We make important investment in the new technologies that allow our intelligence officials and professionals to do the work they need to do. It makes them more effective and it also makes the investment in the people who oversee that technology even more important. We make that important investment in this FY11 Intelligence Authorization Bill as well. Nothing brings that home like the broad scope of what we saw participate in the Osama bin Laden event of last Sunday. Every single intelligence agency, and I do mean every single one, played a part in that operation. From collecting small bits of information, from putting that piece together, signals intelligence, satellite intelligence, MASN intelligence. All of those things came together over the course of 10 years, and I credit George Bush and his administration for assembling this new intelligence community that really started after 9/11, and President Obama for making the authorization and the continued policies that allowed us to have that information to go after Osama bin Laden. It was really quite an impressive thing. Both administrations deserve credit for that, and I would hope that today the people of the House of Representatives would celebrate that victory and all the work of the unsung heroes who work in the shadows by passing this FY11 bill so they can get about the business of protecting the United States. I appreciate again this bipartisan consensus, and I would ask and reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Michigan reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
First, I rise in support of H.R. 754, the Intelligence Authorization Act for FY 2011. The men and women in the military and intelligence community who helped locate al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden exemplify the extraordinary courage and skill of those who work tirelessly to keep our community safe. They should be commended for a job well done, but our fight against terrorism is not over. We have severely weakened al-Qaeda, but we must remain vigilant as we work to eliminate this threat. I believe that it's our responsibility to give our intelligence professionals the resources, capabilities, and authorities they need to do their jobs successfully. The Intelligence Authorization Act for FY 2011 adds thousands of civilian positions above the level enacted in FY 2010 and above the level of people currently on board. This includes counterterrorism positions at the CIA and a large increase in personnel at the National Counterterrorism Center, the NCTC. The bill also adds hundreds of millions of dollars for intelligence above current levels. In response to the website WikiLeaks, the bill includes an insider threat detection program that automatically monitors unauthorized access to classified information. The way Congress conducts effective oversight of the intelligence community is by passing an intelligence authorization bill to give the ICE intelligence community budgetary direction. When I first got to the Intelligence Committee 8 years ago, right after 9/11, I was concerned with the lack of coordination and communication within the intelligence community. The different areas in intelligence, the different CIA, NSA, FBI, there was not the communication or coordination that was necessary. But this has definitely changed today. The Osama bin Laden mission proved that. Professionals from all across the intelligence community, including the CIA, NGA, NSA, and Special Ops, all came together as a team to get the job done. We're now on our game. We're working together. We're better than we've ever been. And we clearly have sent a message to the world. If you're going to attack Americans, if you're going to kill Americans, we're going to find you and we're going to bring you to justice. On the Intelligence Committee, the House Select Intelligence Committee, we work together. Chairman Rogers, as he stated before, and I have agreed to work together in a bipartisan manner. The stakes are too high not to do so. I join Chairman Rogers in saying politics has no place in the Intelligence Committee. The threats are real and the stakes are too high. Sure, we will have disagreements. We will disagree from time to time on policy, but we will work together to work through these issues to do what is right for the intelligence community to protect our country and our national security. This is what we did in this budget. After months of negotiations with the majority and a number of changes to address many of the concerns of the administration, I believe this bill moves in a positive direction. It goes a long way to help our intelligence professionals get the job done. Thank you, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Maryland reserves. The gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
I would like to yield 1 minute to the distinguished member of the Intelligence Committee from New Jersey, Mr. Lobiando.
The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to start out by thanking you, Chairman Rogers and Mr. Ruppersberger, for refocusing the efforts of the Intel Committee on that which is critically important with the authorization and oversight for our intelligence community. We have incredibly dedicated men and women who are putting their lives on the line every day in a way that almost all of America will never know. These individuals deserve nothing less than the full attention and help from Congress in the authorization and helping them with the programs that are necessary to continue the dramatic successes such as that we've seen with Osama bin Laden. Now, they have successes every day, ladies and gentlemen. They're not as high profile as the one we had last week, but many of them are just as important. Without the intelligence authorization bill, we're having them row with one arm tied behind their back. It's unfair to them. It's unfair to the country. In these times of turbulence, with an enemy that is bound and determined to hurt our country, we rely on our intelligence community and the great work that they do. This bill will help them do that. I would thank the Chairman very much and yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Michigan reserves. Gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Yes, sir. I now recognize a senior member of the Intelligence Committee, the ranking member of the Terrorism Subcommittee, Mr. Thompson of California, for 3 minutes.
The gentleman from California is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Ruppersberger, for yielding, and thank you to Mr. Ruppersberger and to Mr. Rogers for their good work in the committee. As ranking member of the Subcommittee on Terrorism, Human Intelligence Analysis, and Counterintelligence, I'm pleased that we're able to work through our differences to bring a stronger and now bipartisan intelligence authorization bill to the floor today. H.R. 754 will support critical U.S. intelligence capabilities by increasing resources for our country's counterterrorism efforts while also providing needed flexibility to the Central Intelligence Agency to hire the analysts that it needs. Last year, under the leadership of then-Speaker Pelosi and Chairman Reyes, President Obama signed the first Intelligence Authorization Act in 6 years. That bill included a number of long overdue provisions that supported critical U.S. intelligence capabilities, significantly enhanced congressional oversight, and improved accountability across the entire intelligence community. Today's bill builds on that effort and represents an important step forward towards enacting an intelligence authorization bill for the second year in a row. Unfortunately, the process used to produce this bill was badly flawed, and there weren't proper hearings to get to where we are now. And that's evidenced by the amendments that we were able to get into this bill to bring it up to the position that it's in. But however, with the changes made to the classified annex, I believe this authorization will strengthen our national security and is in the best interest of our intelligence community. Specifically, the additional funds authorized by this bill to hire more counterterrorism analysts will make our country safer and more secure. It was, after all, counterterrorism analysts that located Osama bin Laden after he had disappeared for nearly 10 years and that are now tracking senior al-Qaeda leadership around the globe. By providing more resources to this critical effort, our intelligence community will be able to confront head-on the threat posed by al-Qaeda and other terrorist organizations throughout the world. In fact, given the recent success of our counterterrorism effort, this is the strategy we should pursue over our counterinsurgency campaign in Afghanistan, which has not shown the results Congress expected or that the American people demand. This tactical change would significantly reduce our military footprint in countries around the world while allowing our military and intelligence assets to confront terrorism threats wherever they're developed. Mr. Speaker, our intelligence community must be prepared for any and all threats, making it all the more critical for Congress to pass an intelligence authorization that furthers our national security. This legislation is necessary, will enhance the capabilities. 30 more seconds?
Yes, I'll yield to the gentleman.
The gentleman's recognized.
Additional 30 seconds.
This legislation is necessary, will enhance the capabilities of the intelligence community, specifically our counterterrorism efforts, and will make our nations safer. I urge my colleagues to support this bill and thank the members of our intelligence community and their families for their great work and their sacrifice. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from California yields back. The gentleman from Maryland reserves. The gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would recognize the gentle lady from the great state of North Carolina for 2 minutes, also a distinguished member of the Intelligence Committee.
The gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, and I thank the Chair for yielding me time. I'm delighted to be here today because this is a good moment for our intelligence community that we are going to pass an intelligence bill. You've heard it said it's been 6 years since there has been an authorization of these people, and they are out there every single day in every single agency doing what they do so we can be here to be able to discuss this on the floor and to live freely in this country and around the world. It's extremely important that they have the knowledge and security of knowing that what they do is approved of and authorized by this committee in the House. And it's been good to have a bipartisan agreement in the sense that we have worked very well together. Mr. Rogers and Mr. Ruppersberger work extremely well. Myself, Mr. Thompson, who chair one of the committees, work very well together. The committee members do. And so it's encouraging that we're able to move forward in a way that's very positive for the people of this country relative to their national security. So I urge all of my colleagues to support this bill, and with that I yield back.
The gentlelady from North Carolina yields back. The gentleman from Michigan reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to recognize the distinguished gentleman from Kentucky, a hardworking member of the Technical and Tactical Committee on the Intelligence Committee, Mr. Chandler from Kentucky, for 3 minutes.
The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the gentleman from Maryland for the recognition. Osama bin Laden, one of the worst men to walk the earth since Adolf Hitler, is dead. While on the run for many years, bin Laden continued to plan and coordinate attacks against Americans. He was only found and killed because of coordinate attacks against Americans. He was only found and killed because of the brave men and women in our military and in our intelligence community. We have some of the best intelligence operations in the world, and if we want to continue the fight against terrorism, we need to keep it that way. And this bill does just that. The bill authorizes funding for the dedicated men and women of the intelligence community to help them do their jobs and protect American citizens. In my tenure on the Intelligence Committee, I have had the privilege of visiting with many of the courageous and extremely bright people who work in intelligence. After meeting them, there's no doubt in my mind that we are in good hands, and I have a greater appreciation for the work they do to keep America safe every day. It's incredibly important that we support those efforts, especially in light of the extraordinary job the intelligence community did in finding and killing bin Laden. These are tough times with our budget, but the security of our people has got to be our priority. Last year, Congress passed its first Intelligence Authorization Act since the 2005 bill under the leadership of Chairman Reyes. I applaud both Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Ruppersberger in their efforts to work out a bipartisan compromise that would help maintain and strengthen our impressive intelligence community. They've done a tremendous job, and it's a breath of fresh air to see everybody working so well together. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman from Kentucky yields back. The gentleman from Maryland reserves. The gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to yield now 2 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from Texas and a member of the Intelligence Committee, Mr. Conaway.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the chairman of that. I hope those aren't mutually exclusive. It's so distinguished and being from Texas. I rise in strong support of this year's Intelligence Authorization Bill and encourage my colleagues, all of them, to support this. But with that strong support comes a modest amount of disappointment in that through no fault of anyone in particular, no one's fault, we had to strike, the chairman made the tough decision to strike Section 412 from the bill, which would have allowed certain elements within the Intel community to set up their own direct accounts with Treasury. It's a bit of an arcane statement, but it allows the greater steps toward achieving auditability across the intelligence community. The provisions were intended to promote this goal of better financial accountability and insight into our classified spending. The intelligence community, Mr. Chairman, must meet the same financial accounting standards as the rest of government. Those accounting standards will help uncover savings in current programs that can be reinvested in vital intelligence priorities or returned to the taxpayers. So while I am disappointed that the provision was not in the 2011 bill, I've already had good conversations with the chairman reference to the 2012 bill, which will be in committee in the next couple of weeks, so that we can continue to move the intelligence community, their various slots, toward accountability, which is important for the taxpayer, and it gives management a reliable tool. If they've got those systems, got the internal controls in place, it will give them tools in order to manage the money that the precious resources that we take from the taxpayers and entrust to the intelligence community to do the great work that we've done, that they have done, excuse me, over these past years. No greater example of that, of course, than the find and fix portion of the bin Laden experience that we saw play out on May 1st and 2nd. A terrific achievement by folks whose faces will never be seen, whose names will never be known, except to them and their colleagues. They'll know who they are. They'll have that great pride of knowing that they've done great work for this country using the tools that we provide them. So I urge my colleagues to support the reauthorization bill, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Michigan reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Yeah, how much time do we have?
The gentleman from Maryland has 21.5 minutes, and the gentleman from Michigan has 20 minutes.
Okay, I reserve.
Gentleman from Maryland reserves. Gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
2 minutes. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the appropriator member of the House Committee on Intelligence from New Jersey, Mr. Frelinghuysen.
The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the chairman for yielding and rise in support of this reauthorization. Mr. Chairman, I also rise to pay tribute to the dedicated men and women of our intelligence communities. Their work is not an easy job in the best of times, but over the last 10 years, they've carried an especially heavy day-to-day burden. They work long hours under tremendous pressure, mostly in obscurity, to ensure that Americans are protected everywhere. They are unsung heroes of national security, and we owe them more than we can possibly repay. My colleagues, as a member of the House from a 9/11 state, I take very seriously the findings of the 9/11 Commission. And one of the key recommendations of the Commission was the need to improve coordination of the numerous congressional committees charged with overseeing and funding the intelligence community and its many activities. To this end, I commend Chairman Mike Rogers for including me as part of the intelligence team in his committee. I'd also like to thank Chairman Hal Rogers of the Appropriations Committee for seeing fit to appoint me as one of 3 liaisons to the Intelligence Committee. We are working closely with the Intelligence Community and Intelligence Committee to eliminate the daylight that has existed in the past between these 2 important committees and the legislation that's produced. The bill Chairman Rogers and Mr. Ruppersberger have constructed does ensure that our intelligence community has the tools and resources to analyze, predict, respond, and counter all the threats to America and Americans. I commend them for their effort, and I'm proud to be part of their team, and I yield back.
The gentleman from New Jersey yields back. The gentleman from Maryland continues to reserve. The gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recognize for 2 minutes the gentleman from Georgia, also a member of the committee, Mr. Westmoreland.
The gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the chairman for allowing me to have 2 minutes. I cannot stress enough the importance of passing this FY 2011 Intelligence Authorization Bill. This legislation will not only ensure that our intelligence agencies are sufficiently funded to carry out their functions, but will hold them financially accountable. It has been 6 years since Congress has passed a complete intelligence authorization bill. In years past, we have simply continued to deem funding for our intelligence programs to be authorized through other appropriations bills. Well, our law expressly requires that we explicitly authorize intelligence funding, and that is what we need to do here. We need to start passing an authorization bill each year in order to maintain the success of our intelligence communities and spell out exactly what will be provided. Now, I want to commend Ranking Member Rupenberger and Chairman Rogers for their work in working together to make sure that this is made possible. The significance of our country's intelligence cannot be overstated. The killing of Osama bin Laden is a direct example of the meaningful work that these agencies performed in order to protect us. We must continue to provide these men and women with the resources and capabilities that they need, and not just place obstacles in their way, but give them the resources that will make their job easier and more efficient. This authorization bill provides a detailed blueprint of necessary budget needs for the 17 separate agencies that it covers. It funds both military and civilian members of our intelligence and community and directly supports those involved in dangerous operations at home and abroad. They are the very operations that are countering global terrorism and monitoring foreign militaries. These are the operations that make sure America stays on the cutting edge of intelligence technology to be able to detect and thwart threats that become imminent. These are the people we must ensure are adequately funded, and I just ask all my colleagues to support this bill.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized. The gentleman from Maryland continues reserved. The gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask we give 1 minute to Mr. Flake from Arizona.
The gentleman from Arizona is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. I'd just like to engage in a colloquy briefly, if we can. As the gentleman knows, I have worked, and he has worked, to decrease funding for the NDIC, or the National Drug Intelligence Center. This is a center that's received hundreds of millions of dollars over the years, yet in 2005, the White House OMB report said that the NDIC has proven ineffective in achieving its assigned mission. Reports subsequent to that have pointed at similar failures and problems, yet it still received last year, I think, $44 million. I had intended to bring an amendment to this authorization bill, but I don't want to hold up this important authorization for FY11. If I could just ask the chairman if he plans to bring an authorization bill for 2012.
We plan to bring a bill for 2012, and I will work with you on the NDIC. I couldn't agree more. It's important that we continue to have the government effort focus on illicit drugs. However, the National Drug Intelligence Center has done very little to address this national priority, and I look forward to working with the member.
I thank the chairman. I yield back.
He's back. The gentleman from Maryland continues reserved. The gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recognize for 1 minute distinguished member of the Intelligence Committee, Mr. Heck.
The gentleman from Nevada is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to begin by recognizing our military's extraordinary effort to successfully close a painful chapter in American history. Of course, the military could not have performed their mission so successfully without our intelligence community's unflagging efforts. The men and women of the intelligence community are the unsung heroes of not only the mission to bring Osama bin Laden to justice, but many other successful counterterrorism operations, and they deserve tremendous credit. The successful bin Laden mission highlights the critical role our intelligence community plays in protecting our national security. Two of the intelligence community's chief weapons against terrorism are information and the ability to communicate that information swiftly. I'm proud to say that the airmen at Creech Air Force Base in my home state of Nevada are critical to both capturing and communicating information that is necessary for intelligence operations. One reason that Nevadans elected me last fall was to restore government accountability and oversight. Secretary of Defense Gates and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Admiral Mullen both identified America's growing debt as our #1 national security concern. As we're fighting the war on terror, we must not allocate resources without due process. And we must ensure the intelligence community—
I'd like to extend another 30 seconds.
Gentleman's recognized.
—is accountable for their operations because most of their operations occur outside of the public's view. Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Rupersberger are doing incredible work to make these ideas that we share a reality. I applaud their dedication to restoring proper accountability and oversight to the intelligence community. I am confident the Intelligence Authorization Act provides the resources and latitude our intelligence community needs while ensuring fiscal and operational responsibility. That is why I urge my colleagues to vote yes on H.R. 754, and with that, I yield back.
The gentleman from Nevada yields back. The gentleman from Maryland continues to reserve.
Continue to reserve.
The gentleman continues to reserve. The gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recognize another distinguished gentleman from the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Rooney, for 2 minutes.
The gentleman from Florida is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ranking Member, thank you for your leadership. I rise today, Mr. Speaker, in support of fiscal year 2011 intelligence authorization legislation. On September 11, 2001, our nation faced the deadliest attack of terror in U.S. history. On the evening of May 1, 2011, the mastermind of those attacks, Osama bin Laden, was brought to justice and killed while hiding in a compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. Along with the sacrifices of our nation's troops and the sacrifices that they've made over the last 10 years, our intelligence community has played an integral role in fighting the war on terror and keeping America safe. The behind-the-scenes work of the intelligence community leading up to the attack and the raid in Abbottabad was critical to the success of the mission and will continue to be crucial asset to winning the war on terror. Completing the Intelligence Authorization Bill is critical to ensuring that our nation's intelligence agencies have the tools they need to remain on the forefront of global and national security. This bill provides vital congressional oversight and policy guidance to the intelligence community on behalf of the American people. Congress must ensure these agencies are acting in our best interests and spending taxpayer dollars wisely. As a member of the House Intelligence Committee and the House Armed Services Committee, I urge my colleagues to support this bill. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentleman from Florida yields back. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Yes. Two issues that I'd like to discuss that we don't talk about a lot, but I think it's important that we do raise the issue. I know Chairman Rogers and I and the rest of the committee do work on this issue, and that's our space program, and that's also cybersecurity. We years ago responded to Russia putting up Sputnik by, in 10 years, putting a man on the moon. What we did basically is that we helped create the science of rocket science. We did research and development, and we were able to put a man on the moon. That was a great day for the United States of America when we did put a man on the moon. Now we're in a situation where our space program needs to move forward. We have a lot of issues that we have to deal with in our space program. And the main reason for that is that if you control the skies, you basically control the world. Space and satellites are so important to what we do, not just from an intelligence point of view. Getting the information, taking the pictures, dealing with all sorts of communications. These are things that we do in space, and we have to keep moving ahead. We have to get our younger generation graduating from our colleges to continue to go into space. And the big threat there is China and Russia. China is putting billions of dollars into space. Their goal is to go to the moon. And it's our concern that if they do that, we have to be with them there. We have to continue our research and development, and we have to be vigilant in our space program. Russia also is very active in the space area. So it's something that isn't talked about a lot, but there's a lot of money that goes into space. And I think we have to do a better job in our military and our space and intelligence to let the public know how important space is. There's also another issue which is of great concern, I think, to the United States of America's national security, and that is the issue of cyber security. As we speak, we're being attacked by different governments, and who knows what else we're being attacked by. Getting information, relevant information, every day we speak is a very serious issue. And unfortunately, the public does not really understand what cyber is about. Our NSA is as good as any operation in the world in their technology and developing the technology in order to protect our country. We don't control the Internet other than a small part, our .mil, the military part. So we have to make sure that our public understands how important cybersecurity is, how we could be attacked. We just recently had an attack about a month ago in NASDAQ. Just think if we had a cyber attack in our banks and what the lack of confidence would be for our public. And the government can't afford to pay for it all. So there has to be an effort between our government, our military, our NSA, between our private sector and between individuals who have their personal computers. This is an area of the future we need to focus on. I reserve my time.
The gentleman from Maryland reserves. The gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I want to commend Mr. Ruppersberger for the last remarks. Cybersecurity is a real and growing threat for the United States. We make serious commitments in this FY11 bill, and we have pledged to work together on separate pieces of legislation to put the United States in a better position to defend itself against cybersecurity. Something that started out so long ago as somebody in their mother's basement hacking in to the local school to change their grades has become whole nation states using the Internet and all of cyberspace to not only steal intellectual property from private enterprise, attempt to hack and steal information from the United States, and also use it for offensive purposes. We have seen the Russians who, when they went into Georgia, use aggressively cyber to prep the battlefield for their invasion. Something that we all need to worry about. I want to, again, pledge to work with the ranking member on this very, very important issue so that we can get some on better footing as we move forward. Also on the space, it is one of the things that has given the United States a technological advantage in the world, something that we need to continue to make those investments into the overhead architecture of the United States, from communication satellites to all of the things that we do from space. And it is a serious investment on this country, but when you look at the success of something like the Osama bin Laden raid, you realize all of it, from space to cyber to signals intelligence to human intelligence, is something that was invested in this money, and I'm glad that the ranking member used this opportunity to talk about those very important issues and the commitment in this bill to start to put us on better footing for that, and I would reserve my time.
The gentleman from Michigan reserves. The gentleman from Maryland.